Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Occupy Fantasy. Week 1 NFL DFS Q&A, lineup advice, FanDuel, DraftKings, Yahoo. Moose, it's been a long time. I guess it's only been 5 days since you and I talked on stream, but it's been a long time since we did a Week 1 Q&A.
Yeah, it's been a whole year. It's like week one comes around every year.
Yes. That's why we pay you the big bucks, Moose. The big math brain over there.
It's super big,
What's,
right?
what's up, dude?
Not too much, man. Just loving it. We always talk about it. We love week one. We love that it's here. But sometimes we take a step back, and I don't mean to be like a Debbie Downer of everything, but like week one kind of sucks, just from like a everything perspective. Like we absolutely love that week one's here, and we love to throw our bankroll at it. But sometimes we have to take a step back. That even if it is week one, we don't necessarily have to max allocate it. Still got to play the same way it would be if it was week 15 or week 4 or whatever. So interested to chop it up with you tonight, and everyone else that's here in the chat as well. So yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, no, I agree, Moose. And Week 1 has that special feature where the salaries were out, 3 or 4 weeks before the slate started, and that impacts a lot of things. Like our top plays in our daily plug are pretty well known, I think, this week, and it's that well known around the entire industry. And it's just how you get different this week, what you do with that information. And again, I'm like you, Moose. I think this is, although we're super excited football's back, definitely out of all the weeks of the year, probably one of the lowest allocations. And I know a lot of pros out there feel differently, Moose, whether it's sports bettors or DFS players, because the lack of information isn't there for most people. But at least the way we play and the way our model works, I think we prefer to get a little bit deeper into the season, especially since we can utilize those underperforming wide receivers.
Yeah, and we talked about it on the $1 Million Mission on Tuesday. With you that your first 4 weeks aren't the greatest. My first 4 weeks aren't the greatest as well. But again, you said other people have success, and that's why we're here, because maybe that can change. All of us can have some success.
Yeah, it's the other thing is, right, is it pure variance? I don't know. Like for my results, it's only 4 weeks once a year, 3-4 years or whatever it is. So yeah, who never knows? We're always looking forward to it. And so basically what this show is going to be, for those of you who are just joining, 30 minutes, you guys drive the show. You ask questions, we answer them about tomorrow's slate. If you're going to ask this player or this player, have some context to it, but mostly high-level questions, stacking questions, lineup construction questions. We're here to answer it for you. And Moose, until we get some more questions, I wanted to ask you, because you're the model architect, and we do have this dilemma of not having any data outside of preseason and what we saw last year for the model. But what are some of the difficulties that we see, or people out there who are data heavy see, in week 1 compared to some of these other weeks?
Yeah, it's very, very odd, I guess you would say, because how we have the sports scale of pure math-based stats versus based versus news-based, where you have MLB is very heavy on stats, NBA is very heavy on news, for example. NFL is somewhere kind of in the middle. But we only have last year's data to go by, and since a lot of things can happen over the offseason, we also have to rely on news and our kind of own intuition, gut, and research. So there's definitely some difficulties there, but our model handles it pretty well.
Yeah, it's just a little bit more of a user input early on than the well-oiled machine that it is week 4 and beyond. So, so what you got to see on?
I was gonna say, think of it like your first car. You get like the 1990 Honda, and you got to go up a big hill. It's like, all right, you can't just go 60 up it. Your car's gonna break. You got to slowly ease into it, go up. You got to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and that's what the first couple weeks are like with the model.
Moose just compared the model to a 90s Honda Accord, so tread lightly.
It gets you there, doesn't it?
It does get you there, that is for sure.
So looks like we actually have some questions to hear. First one from Hawk Dark. Thoughts on Harris as a.k.a. Curtis Samuel play and Winston 3-1 stack to get away from the Callaway chalk?
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with our terminology, that sentence could sound like a foreign language, right? So what Hawk Dark is referring to is our $1 Million Mission episode from Tuesday. Go check it out if you haven't already. Our free NFL strategy guide, go read that if you haven't already. We look to 3-1 stack every single high-risk lineup that we make. Marquez Callaway is going to be the most popular player on the slate, especially at the wide receiver position. We project him for 25% plus. And as a result, you can get, I don't mind stacking him if you're playing Green Bay, New Orleans stacks. I don't mind playing him, right? Because as we talked about on Tuesday, most stacks aren't as popular as they should be. However, if you're thinking about a cheap piece in that game, Deontay Harris should be the number 2 with Traquan Smith out. Deontay Harris had 80 receiving yards in their last playoff game in a kind of a forced up roll. So I think Harris will go completely overlooked. And, I tweeted out today who are some of your favorite plays under 3K or under 4K. And we got a couple of people talking about Harris. So I think Harris is actually a pretty decent pivot if for some reason you decide to stack the game and not play Callaway.
Yeah, definitely. You hit that right on the money. Ed says, who's your favorite stack for a DraftKings GPP? I haven't looked at the model yet, but I'm really liking Mac Jones and Wentz stacks.
Yeah, I see Ed's got the white quarterback filter turned up to the max in his own personal model. But yeah, I mean, the stacks we wrote in the plug that Chris wrote up are the top ones. I personally like Philadelphia and Atlanta the most, just for a variety of reasons. But I think there are 4 or 5 moves that are very clear above the rest that you can choose from for your tournament lineups.
Yeah, you and I were just talking about this earlier. With Odell being questionable, this opens up a thing where everyone else can be pretty cheap, and if you want a nice, cheap one-off from the other opposing team, you could stack Kansas City, get a nice, cheap receiver on the other end if he is out. So that's something to think about as well.
Yeah, because he doesn't even though the game total is 55, it doesn't really feel comfortable triple stack or double stacking with Mayfield. You go Baker Mayfield, and if Odell's out, Landry and Peoples-Jones, Landry and Higgins, like it's fine.
Yeah.
And it honestly allows you to pay up a lot of other spots, and it definitely allows you to bring it back with Kelsey or Tyreek. So I don't know. That's something I'm still juggling with today.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see here. Wig says, so if you think Green Bay and New Orleans is a good game to stack, wink, wink, would your roster construction change depending on who you think could be trailing or leading? I could see a scenario where Green Bay takes a big lead.
Yeah, I think so. If you can wrap your mind around those scenarios, for sure. Like if you think Green Bay gets a big lead, then maybe you're doing Winston, Kamara, Callaway in a passing. They have to come from behind, and then you run it back with Aaron Jones because they're grinding out the clock on the other side, right? I think that is if you're making one lineup or a couple lineups, that is certainly a way to think about game stacks.
Yeah, and so speaking of game stacks, I do want to ask the audience first for that's here. Does anyone have any tickets for the big GPP, whether on DraftKings, FanDuel, or I don't even know if Yahoo does it, just satellites. But any tickets?
But to be honest, just real quick, Yahoo kind of gave people a satellite because they gave everybody a $10 credit. So as long as you claimed it, you can play that $10 GPP for free.
Nice. So what I was going to say is, normally people, they enter a contest if they're maxing it, it's 1, 3, 20, 150. But week 1 is definitely very different in terms of people rack up tickets for the last couple of weeks. They may have a weird number. They might have a nice number of 69. They might have 7. They might have whatever. There's no number that people constantly talk about. So if you have an odd number of tickets like that, Brian, how would you approach playing those type of contests?
That's a really good question because most of the time you have your set strategy every week, but when ticket week comes around, you can't really control how many you have unless you're able to max it. So I think first of all, it depends on what your goals are for the contest. Are you happy with min caches? Are you okay with if you blank all of them? What does your typical strategy look like? How does this differ? So I think it depends. I would still use 3 game stacks and just kind of mix and match. Even if I had 6 tickets, I would probably do, 6 different quarterbacks, 3 different game stacks, just to give yourself 1 out of 6 chances of 1 hits or something, or 2 out of 6. So I think that's what I would do from a ticket standpoint. It obviously is different if you're playing, non-ticket contests.
Yeah, definitely. Non-ticket contests are definitely different. Dot Bet says he has a 100 milli ticket. But that's all you need.
All you need, bro. Let's get it. Please take it down.
Definitely. Hawk Dark says, what's your thoughts on Hurts, Smith, Goddard?
Yeah, big fan. One of my favorite stacks of the week, for sure.
Nice.
Devonta too cheap. Goddard, the model, likes him. I like it a lot.
Definitely. And while we're waiting for some more questions, I do just want to point out at the bottom of your screen, you do see the current odds from BetRivers Sportsbook. I'm over in Virginia. Love them. So if you're in a legal betting state, click on the link below. You can take on OccupyFantasy.com. We have some sweet deposit bonuses and legal bonus states. Definitely something to check out.
Absolutely. And we do have 2 questions that I think got lost in the mix here. Elijah Moore on FanDuel for cash games. Yeah, I haven't built low risk on FanDuel. I think it's easy enough to where you might not have to go that cheap at receiver. But if you do go that cheap, he's one of our top cheap receiving options. So Yeah, I like Elijah Moore this week, especially if Keelan Cole is ruled out tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Okay, and I see the other one. Thomas Cochran says, "Is there a different stack strategy, FanDuel versus DraftKings?"
No, exact same strategy. We write that up in the strategy guide. Exact same strategy. The pricing makes it a little different, but the core concepts are exactly the same.
Yeah. Tron says there are quite a few sub 4K wide receivers who are going to attract ownership. Many rosters will have at least one of them, making this a key decision on the slate. How are you approaching the situation?
Yeah, excellent question. Excellent question. Because you figure we talked about Callaway, we just talked about Elijah Moore, two of the most popular receivers on the slate, especially in that ownership tier. And people are going to want to fit in some of the expensive running backs, some of the expensive receivers. As a result, I think most lineups do end up having one cheap receiver in it, which is fine, right? Like if you want to play one of those guys, that's fine. If you're game stacking and get it different. For me personally, Moose, my two kind of leverage points away from that this week is either, and again, this is high risk contest. I'm game stacking, and some of the game stacks I'm using uses those mid-price receivers, that 5 to 7K range. And by using 2 or 3 guys from that range, it automatically takes you off that construction where you don't need a cheap receiver. That's one way. The other way is, like, let's say this Atlanta game. Philly has some really cheap receivers, as does Atlanta. We're talking about Jalen Reagor, Quez Watkins on the Eagles side. By playing those guys at 1%, right, in a game stacked environment, massive upside. This is the Curtis Samuel theory. That automatically gets you away from those super popular low price receivers as well. So I think there's a couple different ways you can do it, but most the key takeaway is that game stacks is your way to get away from it.
Yeah, you pretty much hit that on the head there. DJ asks, "Will the Bills cover the spread?"
What do you think, Moose? We're in the pick'em contest this year. I don't think we're considering that game for our pool, but it's still 6.5 that game, right?
Yeah, still 6.5. Yeah, I can see that. I never take a 6.5 point dog just because
Right.
the 7 point. But yeah, so I can see Buffalo getting it done.
Yeah, I think the line moving from 6 to 6.5 and staying under 7 is a pretty good bet. So yeah, give me the Bills minus 6.5 there.
Yeah. Brian, I have a question for you that I know we say cornerback wide receiver matchups don't matter, but the Chiefs just announced that Tyrann Mathieu now a game time decision. So how do you handle that? Do you think that's just smoke and just not even worrying about it?
We got so many questions this morning. Is it safe to build lineups now? There's not a lot of injury news. Like, yeah, totally fine. And then we get like a million injury news after 12. So you do know, Moose, we talked about it many times before. We don't talk about cornerback wide receiver matchups unless there's an injury.
Yeah.
And if that happens, that automatically boosts the opposing offense. So this just adds more levels to that Cleveland Kansas City game stack if he's out. Tyrann Mathieu plays all over the field. I don't know, man. It definitely 100% helps Cleveland's offense, even if OBJ is out. So, yeah, I don't know, man. That game total is so high. It's really hard not to stack it.
Yeah, and especially like we always talk about, so week 1 lines came out like forever ago, so I would say that they are pretty sharp at this point. It's gonna be hard for them to move. So yes. Being a high total game, one of the highest total games, I can definitely see you stacking that.
For sure.
Let's see. Sankey says 100-player league on FanDuel. Would you recommend a wide receiver or running back?
I would probably go running back in your flex spot there. To me, it's always a coin flip, even in the larger contests, because of the scoring system. And I think in 100-player leagues, you don't have to be perfect. Your game stack's enough to get you there. I think you go game stack, and you play 3 running backs that are popular with high volume, and that gives you a great floor. And if your game stack does anything, you're automatically pushing that top 12 to cash in the 100-player leagues.
You pretty much hit it on the spot. Cool. Adam says, "What's the biggest find Jack made on his week 1's forward research?"
I've been bugging Jack every single day, and Adam is referencing us talking about Jack potentially looking into some simulations, some exposure type stuff, research on what makes weeks 1 through 4 different compared to the rest of the year. And Jack's on vacation in Hawaii, and in between beach trips, he's been trying to run those simulations. Unfortunately, they're not ready for week 1, so maybe next week we'll have some more information. Believe me, Adam, I'm just as on the edge of the seat as you are about this research coming in.
Definitely. Matt says, "Yo, Brian, I'm a huge fan. Thanks for all you do." Appreciate the love, Matt.
Appreciate you, Matt. Thank you for tuning in and following all along.
Dotbet says, "Thoughts on Logan Thomas? Feel like he could be targeted plenty with no Samuel. Also pivots off Pitts, Kelsey."
Oh, I love that idea. Absolutely love that idea. Like, right, most everyone's going to play Pitts and Kelsey from our ownership projections. And if you don't, you might go a little cheaper. Logan Thomas is in that no man's land. So I really like that call. And he's definitely in my 150 builds on both sites.
Nice. Rockhouse says, "Is Jalen Hurts and Devonta Smith a good stack?"
Yep. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but yeah, that's one of my favorite stacks. If I had 1 milli ticket, I would probably do that stack. And that's me personally. That goes a little bit against what Chris wrote up in the plug. And I did that this last year, week 1, and ignored one of Chris's write-ups, and that was the winning game stack. So I'm a little nervous to do it again, but I think if you like that game stack, certainly go with it.
Yeah, and you really hit that on the point that last sentence there. If there is a game, even if you read our plug, we recommend 3 to 5 game stacks there. If there's a game stack outside of that you find a reason that you like, don't let us pivot you off it. We always say, Brian, you just need a reason to play somebody.
Right. If you got a reason to play it, again, that correlation automatically makes you different. And you're playing 3-1 game stacks, that makes you different. And I mean, don't go 3-1 stacking. I don't even. What is the worst game on the slate this week? Like Denver and the Giants probably. But who knows? If you want to win a milli out of 1.4 million entries, maybe that's the way to go.
Yeah, that would be pretty awful. That would be pretty awful. But yeah, so that pretty much sums it up there. All right, I'll ask you this, Brian. I know we always talk about some gross lineups. What's a team that you're thinking? We talked about the worst plays. What's a team that has that one reason that you could play them?
Oh, well, how much time you got? I think so. For me, I think the one game stack that's pretty gross that a lot of people won't play is that Cincinnati and Minnesota game, and that is a game that Chris touched on at the end of the game stack section in the plug. But if you think about it, very concentrated volume on the Minnesota side with Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook. And then we get the beauty on the Cincinnati side of having a bunch of underpriced options. All 3 receivers, it's kind of unknown how that receiving room is going to shake out with Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and now Jamar Chase. Joe Mixon's underpriced. We like him a lot. So I think that game stack, if you're looking for an off-the-radar game to play, I think that's probably the best overlooked game stack compared to some of the other ones that I think are more well-known.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, anytime you say stack Cincinnati, like, I'm already on board. You don't even have to say anything else. I don't have like 37 pieces of apparel for every time they score a touchdown.
Yeah.
For nothing.
That is true.
I was just looking into the model here. Mixon is our 3rd ranked DraftKings running back, which is
he moved up.
Yeah.
He moved up since yesterday too. Yeah, I mean, he burns me so often, but I mean, Moose, this is the perfect spot for him. Yeah. First week without Gio, underpriced, workhorse role, game stack to target, not prohibitive ownership. Not that we care about it that much anyways for high risk contests, but I love Mixon this week. Probably my favorite running back, all things considered.
Yeah, no, you took the words out of my mouth. But there are some more questions. I do just want to ask you, Brian, one more question before we get into the chat. Fitzpatrick, we are local to DC, so we got to talk about the football team. Fitzpatrick has the highest OF index change since opening at 2. He's essentially one of the highest quarterbacks in the model, top 7 or something like 10, something like that. And Washington does rank pretty highly. Is there anybody from that game that you're kind of targeting?
Terry McLaurin's a big one. Logan Thomas, that Best was just talking about. Yeah. You play that stack. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think anyone's gonna play that game. Has a lower total, 2 tougher defenses. So it's interesting. I guess the OF index change was driven by the line move, probably, right, Moose?
Yeah, they have I think plus 1.5 team total increase. The football team does.
Yeah, I think so. So that's probably a big contributing factor to his OF index change over the last couple of days.
Yeah. Hawk Dark says, "What's your thoughts on Justin Jefferson? He's ranking high in the model at low ownership."
Those are the guys we love to play in tournaments. Receivers at low ownership, especially stud receivers, right? Justin Jefferson, if we get him overlooked, yeah, man, fire that up.
Definitely. And then Jenna Sandy says, just seen some content that said I should take a crazy shot on Juwan Johnson. LOL, you never know though.
Yeah, man. If I would prefer the other way around, if you could play a wide receiver who is a tight end like Kyle Pitts, as opposed to a tight end who's listed as a wide receiver. Um, Believe me, I've taken some shots on Juwan Johnson in my season-long drafts. That doesn't mean I'm going to play him in week 1.
Yeah. Dot says Cook should do whatever he wants on the ground.
I would think so. Cincinnati did improve their defensive line quite a bit. That's one of the big changes, I think, from last year to this year. Whether that translates and whether their offense can stay on the field to keep their defense on the field, I don't know. But it'll be interesting. I mean, obviously, Dalvin's in a great spot, and he can do whatever he wants against most defenses. So.
Yeah. Lee has a season-long question. In a 10-man PPR league, should I trade Jonathan Taylor for Chubb and Pitts?
I would. Taylor and Chubb are, relatively close, and then you add the addition of Pitts, who I'm pretty much on board with everything involving Kyle Pitts this year. So yeah, I say do it.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Speaking of Pitts, what do you think the percentage of tight end and flex is going to be in big GPPs?
It might be the highest all year, right? With Pitts at 4,400 and Kelsey on the slate. I think we saw last year the average was 10 to 12% that people use tight end and the flex on DraftKings. I would not be shocked to see that number at 15% this week, solely because of Pitts.
Yeah, it's going to be nuts. And he'll score 3 touchdowns. Kelsey scored 2, break the slate.
I know. All that shit we talked about, don't play tight end in the flex. I do think that there's one specific week to do it. It's this week, but only with Pitts and Kelsey together. Mm-hmm. But I think that'll be a popular opinion.
And just play Juwan Johnson to do the 3 tight end.
The rare triple tight end. Please, someone do that in the $5 milli, please.
Yes, I have. I think like 17 tickets or something. I'll do that in one of them.
Be the only person to ever win a milli with 3 tight ends.
It's like, was it the? I know we're rambling here. There was on FanDuel one of the showdown because I track ownership. There was the one where they had the 3 quarterbacks that won the milli solo,
or the rare. Yeah, that was the Taysom slate, right?
Yeah.
God, yeah, because it's like 40% of lineups use 2 quarterbacks, 59.9% used 1 quarterback, and then 0.1% used 3 quarterbacks. Like, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah,
it was a Taysom slate, right?
So yeah, of course, right. So, all right, we're here for about 7 more minutes. Keep the questions coming. Appreciate it. If you like the video, definitely hit the thumbs up. That really helps us. If you're not subscribed and you like what you see here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also join our Discord with our membership program. Hit the join button below. Very cheap. If you like what you see on, you want to read our daily plug, our DFS picks and strategy, written by our NFL writer Chris Rooney. You can check it out at occupyfantasy.com. And then lastly, I think I said our Discord server, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. Awesome community. We just added a new channel for props discussion. So if you're playing over on Underdog or betting some player props, some awesome discussions going to be happening over there as well.
Absolutely. And Moose, should we scroll down a bit here since we got 5 minutes left? Let's look at the top game stack that Chris wrote up and look at this new plug format.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and Chris's games to stack. First one is Green Bay at New Orleans. The Vegas total at 49.5 for the Saints' home game in Jacksonville. He anticipates touch volume to be tightly distributed to only a handful of skilled players on both the Packers and the Saints. And so for this new plug format, he has the best New Orleans pairs with Jameis Winston, best Green Bay pairs with Aaron Rodgers, high risk pairs, and then best bringbacks, which is a really interesting format. I really do like it.
Yeah, the way I would utilize this is if I'm playing smaller contests, 100-player leagues, these smaller high-risk contests where I'm game stacking, I would pick the quarterback and play the 2 low-risk game stack options with him. So like if I was playing Winston, I would just play Kamara and Callaway with him, running back with whether it's Aaron Jones or Devontae Adams. And then if I'm playing the larger contest, that's when I start to venture in adding one of the super cheap pieces, one of the high-risk options to my 3-man stack or the bring back. So I really like this format. It lists a lot of players, but it's just to give you options, and they are listed in order of preference. So if you're making 150 lineups, like for me personally, I'm not digging past like the 3rd or 4th option, but maybe you like the 6th or 7th option more than the 4th option, whatever it may be. So Chris is giving you all the different ways that you can stack the games.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. Wick says, what's your thoughts on Yami Brown, stack Fitz, Brown, Thomas, or is that too big of a reach?
He's cheap, right? And he's one of those cheap pivots compared to Callaway and Elijah Moore. He's getting a little bit of love with Curtis Samuel, but I do think he'll split some time with Cam Sims. And to me personally, this week, if I'm not game stacking, which you are in that example, if you're not game stacking, I'm looking to play a receiver in that range that can be their team's wide receiver one. There's not many on the slate, right? It's just Callaway basically down there. So long story short, I do like that. I prefer McLaurin, but again, if you need the cheap piece, then De'Ami Brown is definitely the answer.
Definitely. Hawk says, what's your thoughts on Rondale Moore?
Too cheap, but he's getting some manufactured touches. I don't know what his true upside is with DeAndre Hopkins in the offense. AJ Green didn't really play much in the preseason. But again, he's the go-to cheap piece if you're playing the Arizona-Tennessee game stack.
Definitely. Louis Vutron says Pitt is one of the most underpriced players on the slate. While acknowledging every roster is unique, are likelier to approach builds with a 1. Lock him in mindset. 2. Find a cheap tight end who outperforms him. Or 3. Pay up in hopes he disappoints and you gain raw points separated over the field.
Good question. I'll go with option 4, which you didn't list, and exclusively use him in Atlanta Philly game stacks.
Okay.
I think the other option is to because there's some tight ends we like this week, and I would probably either pay down, which I think is probably the way to go, or pay in that mid-tier range where no one's really going, right? Like the Goddard range, like that kind of area. No one's really playing tight ends from there, and I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, that's definitely an option. I'm just pulling up the tight end model here. Yeah, it's like there's like 3 players who are above 10%, and then everyone else is just super like not even owned. So
yeah,
very
exactly.
very concentrated ownership. So yeah, very very easy pivot to go down.
Yeah, I think so.
Here, Paco says 2K entries and less. Is it okay for Ben Roethlisberger, Claypool, Johnson, Juju, or not necessary?
If you're a Steelers fan, you want to have some fun, do it. But I don't think that's the best stack on the slate. I would go with one of our preferred game stacks.
DJ says, how much should I spend on a single entry contest on DraftKings and FanDuel? How large should the field be for me to have an advantage?
Yeah, that depends on your bankroll and what your risk tolerance is and your willingness to lose. I encourage you to check out our ultimate guide at occupyfantasy.com. That can answer a lot of the questions there in a more nuanced fashion than just a quick Q&A. So occupyfantasy.com and check out our ultimate guide.
Definitely. Dot Bet says, who's the bust tomorrow and who's the guy who breaks the slate?
Jalen Reagor breaks the slate, Eagles receiver. And the biggest bust is probably, I mean, it feels like a cop-out to say Callaway's the biggest bust just because he's the highest owned guy, but he's in a super good spot, so it's hard to ignore that. I don't know. I'll say Callaway just because I think there's so many ways it can go wrong, even though he is the number 1 receiver. Now going against a number 1 corner, it's not like that Monday night preseason game was where he's going against backups. So yeah. I guess I'll say Callaway just mostly because of the positional volatility.
Yeah. No, I could see that. Let's see here. Okay, so Paco's saying he's just using Pittsburgh as an example, but saying a stack like that and that type of contest. Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah. So 3 receivers is too much in any contest type from the same team. Yeah, so just pick 2 that you like. Pick the 2 that you like, pair it with the quarterback, running back with someone else. Again, the free strategy guide we talk about, that's linked below, discusses the exact line of construction they make, and 3 receivers is too much.
Cool. And then last question before we get up out of here from Nick says, what's your thoughts on Najee Harris on FanDuel?
I know I said Joe Mixon might be my favorite running back, but Najee Harris is really close too. He's underpriced for the role that we know he's going to get. So he's one of my favorite players. And on FanDuel especially, I just finished my builds right before we came live, and he's one of my highest exposed running backs.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. So, awesome. So that'll pretty much do it. Again, we also do have the Discord, occupyfantasy.com/Discord if you're not a part of that. Definitely go ahead and check that out. Absolutely fantastic resource. Still answering questions in there, having great discussions with our members as well. Brian, tell us where they can find us and take us out of here.
Yep, occupyfantasy.com, at occupyfantasy on Twitter with any last-minute updates leading up to tomorrow. Our NFL writer, Chris Rooney, will be live on our Twitter tomorrow. It's Twitter/Periscope, whatever the hell they're calling it now, 11 a.m. Eastern, doing a rapid-fire Q&A before lock. right? Any final questions you have, he's going to be on Twitter answering them. So be sure to tune in for that if you have any final questions. And again, like Moose said, Discord is the way to go. The plug is up. The model's continuing to be updated. And our lineup builder's full ready to go to build all the lineups you need for the slate. Projected ownership is in. Projected ownership is also in for tomorrow's primetime Sunday night football single game slate. So yeah, go build some lineups.
Yeah, pretty much hit that on the spot. So until next time, Moose and Brian from OccupyFantasy.com.